I'm Patricia Tate Jones. I'm an artist that's living in Ruston, Louisiana, and I've pretty much lived here my whole life. I've done lots of different things in the arts. I've had a stained glass design business with my mom back in the 70s. And then I was an accessory designer for a Canadian clothing company. And finally, when my kids got out of school, I decided I wanted to go back and take art lessons. And so I went to Tech, and I had some great teachers at Tech, and didn't get a degree, but just had the luxury of taking every single class that I wanted to take and that I felt like would help me for what I wanted to do. It was a lot of fun. And so when I started out, because of influence of, say, Peter Jones, I was a landscape painter. I used oils. I painted plein air. I loved it. I did a lot of traveling and painting. Through Peter's example, I paid for some really nice trips by going and painting and coming back and having shows, and really enjoyed that. And then I got into this more mixed media collage type thing that I'm exploring now. I do go back and landscape paint every once in a while when I really see something that hits me. But anyway, I have the luxury of going off on these tangents, which is not developing a genre or a signature look. I just do what I damn well want to do, and having a great time doing it. Pretty much when I was doing oil painting, I had a ritual, a set thing that I would do. I'd tone the canvas, I did get my palette set in a certain way. And now this collage stuff is, a lot of it is about randomness, which is something that I'm just really, really enjoying. I'm enjoying just seeing something on the sidewalk or something on the floor of my studio that just explodes my mind, because it wasn't planned and it wasn't static. And you know, that love of accents and things like that. So so maybe that's why I'm liking this, because it's more process oriented. And there are times that I make my own paper. I've done a process before on old National Geographics that have they're printed on clay paper, and you can put the Citricil stuff on it. And I mean, there's just so many ways I can spring from this that that I'm really enjoying. And the other thing about collage is you have the important thing. One of the important things are the edges, and how the smooth edge or the straight edge reacts to a torn edge, and just the tiny difference in a little curve, or even like punching things out in negative images, things like that. So, because you really can't make mistakes. You can just absolutely cover it up or peel it out or sand it or whatever. And then you begin to see the history. Sometimes you deliberately allow that mistake to show, or you don't, you know, it's like not completely erasing a line in a drawing, because you've seen the history of that drawing. And doesn't that make it so much more interesting, or it creates a movement or a direction for your eye. The first one that I was doing that I kind of named my series Jonesville, because it was just my husband and I here, and our last name is Jones, so duh. But anyway, feeling like we were autonomous and feeling like we were, you know, one little unit, like some of these little small towns you go through when you're driving around Louisiana. There's not very many people there. So, but we had everything we needed. You know, we had food and whatever we needed like that. So we were in a little proper town. And the first piece I did was kind of mapping out the perimeter. And it seemed to me that I had a lot of paths going, and maybe even was kind of marking how many times a day do I go out this door and down this path and go this place or this, you know, if I left tracks when I was traveling, where would I see it? And so this piece sort of ended up being kind of like that to me, just sort of exploring and rediscovering my little domain. And it was so funny because all of a sudden I started using yellow. I've never used yellow before, and I have a lot of yellow in that piece. I don't know where that was coming from. So it does seem that I have a tendency to overdo, you know, like more is more for me instead of less is more. And so that is, it's kind of a commentary, I think, on what's going on in my mind. Sometimes it's crazy. And so that's what I have to, that's my main object now, is to edit and to take away the things that aren't as important. It's very hard for me to do, very hard for me to do. And one of the pieces that I did for this residency, that's Centro Città, the central city, and you remarked on it because when I posted it on Facebook, you went, what is all this? Where's your color? You know, where's all this white? And it was almost like I had to bite my finger to keep myself from going in there and loading that thing up. But I didn't, and I've left it alone. So maybe I learned something from that. That was, I'm trying to think of when I started working on that. That was, maybe it was about a month ago or a month and a half ago. And it was really the hardest time for me the hardest time because of acceptance, you know, and realizing this is not going to go away. And this is kind of what my life is going to be right now. So it was, and that to me, the central part of it was me. I was the central part, trying to find, just to kind of hunker down and find my center. The third one I did was the little garden one that was, it's another funny thing when you talk about the influences residencies had. One Friday afternoon, I listened to some of the artists talk about repetition in detail. And there were artists that were talking about making 1,000 tiny little blocks or balls or whatever. And then I go to the studio and I start cutting up all these little strips of paper, and I have pictures of them. Tiny, tiny little strips of paper. And I start, there I go, making layers again. And so I layered it until I began to see plant forms and seeing all these different colored greens coming out. And then all of a sudden I decided I wasn't trapped in Central City anymore. I was going out into the garden. And so I named it Jones Park because it was a park found in Jonesville. And started going to it from that angle and started doing a lot of, I did a lot of self-portrait drawings because I was going to center myself in the drawing. And I ended up not wanting it to be just me. I ended up wanting it to share it. So I didn't use my self-portrait. I put a mirror in instead for people to come and look and see themselves in the garden. So that was a fun little piece. It's only like maybe 6 by 8, but it has some depth to it. So it does sort of feel like a little box or a little 3-dimensional piece. Then the last piece that I've finished, it's kind of in conjunction with another show that's going to go on in Ruston this summer at Fringe, this little art co-op that we have. We're going to do a show this summer called Across the Street. and we're all going to respond to what we see right here across from us. And I ended up doing a collage of that alley that's across the street from Fringe, you know, where the shark, you know, that alley. Everybody comes and takes photographs there and stuff. They love that little place for some reason. But I did a collage of that. And so it really is an extension of what I was doing with this Jonesville stuff, but I'm out of Jonesville. I'm looking across the street. It's been the thing that's been so interesting to me, because normally when you meet other artists, you're meeting other artists that are kind of doing the same thing you are. You know, if you do a workshop, you're going to do a painting workshop. And this is such a wide variety of different art forms that's been really interesting to me. I really like that. But the down part of it is that lots of times I don't know what they're talking about when they're talking about their process and stuff. So I gotta get down to that a little bit more to understand it, because at their level it's pretty technical. But I always like it when I hear the ones that understand each other talking and bringing that together. And the times that I've really enjoyed it, when people have been shared, when they've shared their life, what's going on with them, and how it affects their art, more than, I guess, the technical aspects of trying to understand, you know, processes. And I always go, wow. I mean, I'm just amazed that someone has thought this and created something out of this idea in their mind. That's pretty wonderful. So it's been good. And I'm really, really curious to see what's all gonna turn out, you know, what's gonna be the end result of this. I think it's gonna be neat.